Hi, Jeff. Here's some of my thoughts about Blackfish. So first of all, I know we've discussed this a little bit, but I think one of the things that really impressed me about the film is what Gabriella, the director, did. She, by having the former SeaWorld trainers narrate the film, you basically get to see our inner transformation about how we feel about captivity throughout the film, and you can watch as we change and our attitudes change. When you're watching the film with an audience, it's very clear that the audience is experiencing a very similar sea change. I got to travel around the world with the film, and I got to watch audiences all over the world respond to this film, and it was really fun to see a similar thing happening no matter what language the film was being dubbed in. And I think that's really masterful on her part, because you get to see, rather than a message being jammed down your throat like a standard activist film with a message, I don't feel like the film does that. I feel like what the film does is it allows us to have a chance to tell our stories, and through us telling our stories and us coming to grips with what we were actually doing, where, like, for me personally, I had felt at the time that I worked at SeaWorld that I was doing something good, and that the animals were ambassadors for their kind, and somehow they were teaching people something about nature and the ocean, you know. And I realized that in fact that wasn't the truth, and these animals were suffering so that a corporation could make money off of them. There wasn't really anything good that we were doing there, and it was kind of embarrassing. And you can see that transformation when I'm talking about myself in the film, and I think that you can also see that in Dr. Jeffrey Ventry and John Jett and Carol Ray. You see that transformation, and the audience gets to go along with us, and they see us make those realizations. And so, and for me, watching audiences all over the world, you also can see that I like to think of this film as something like a gateway drug. And what I mean by that is that you can't help but open your heart when you see this movie. You just can't help it. And when you start to think about the lives of the killer whales and the kind of suffering that they go through in captivity, then you start to think about what their lives would be like in the ocean, and then you start thinking about the ocean, and pretty soon you're out there as an activist. Some part of you gets activated, and you want to do something not only to make these lives, make the lives of the animals in captivity better, but you also want to do something about their habitat and about the planet. And so, and I don't know if that was her intention when she made the film, but that's certainly been my experience and the kinds of questions that we get when I do Q&As after the film. And so a lot of people ask me, what can I do? You know, after they see this film, they want to know, what can I do to make the lives of captive killer whales better? What can I do to help the animals in the ocean? And I really like what Louis Sahoyas says. Louis Sahoyas is the director of The Cove, and he's really simple. He says, what are you good at? Do that. So if you happen to be good at posting on social media, do that. If you're a writer, write about it. If you're a dancer, you know, maybe you can create something having to do with, you know, bring that into your dancing, you know, bring that into your art. Talk to people about it. Whatever you can do to get the message out, that's what's important, and just talk about it. But I really do see, if I look back at where we were in 2010 when Dawn Brancheau was killed and where we are now, I mean, it's quite a transformation if you look at what has happened. SeaWorld really had the microphone for so many years, almost 50 years. And now you can see, as of today, I believe it was yesterday, SeaWorld stock just hit an all-time low. And that is with them introducing a new roller coaster, at the same time losing a long-time animal in their collection. But the public is no longer behind SeaWorld in the same way. And in fact, the National Aquarium in Baltimore just announced that they're going to be retiring their dolphins to sea pens as of 2020. You know, and there's federal legislation and there's state legislation that has come out, and the list goes on and on. So things are changing, and I don't think the public is, at least in this country, is tolerating large cetaceans in captivity anymore. That is just a huge sea change, and it's really happened in such a short period of time. And I like to think that Blackfish has been a huge part of it. But the other piece that I think is important is that what's happened in social media is that what we've seen is a very, not just a grassroots movement, but a movement that's been decentralized. And most of this activity, although there have been people like Dr. Ingrid Visser and Dr. Lori Marino and Dr. Naomi Rose who've been speaking about this issue of captivity for a long time, there's something that has happened to get the issue traction, and that is this movement in social media. It's decentralized. Nobody told anybody what to do, but there's this momentum that has built and built and built in social media. So it's hard to find anybody who really hasn't heard about this issue. And that's shocking to me. I can't remember what the numbers are, but you know, it's over 150 million people, I think, have seen the film, and it could easily be more. So, you know, whereas 6 years ago, if you ask somebody, what do you think about killer whales in captivity, the person might not have even thought about it. And now I think you would be hard-pressed to find anybody who at least didn't have an opinion on it. So I think that's changed, and I think it's in the public consciousness in a way that it's not going anywhere. So I think that's huge.